Please note that although today is primarily for submitters on our draft annual plan, there are a few people coming to speak on the Development Contributions Policy Review as well. First up, we'll hear from the community boards, and I'd like to welcome Kia, who is here because Callum's a bit tied up. So good to see you again, mate. Fire away.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak to the council's annual plan. This is obviously one of the big occasions for us as a community board, is a chance to come in and give you folks a piece of our views on how we think you should spend the city's money, and probably spend more of it and do more and all that good stuff. So you will obviously have our written submission. I think we'll sort of tackle it a bit thematically. So our board, at a high level, is supportive of the direction of the annual plan, and we are pleased to see that this is an annual plan that's trying to tackle some of the challenges around communities and the environment that we have in our city. So that's great. We breaking it down across some of the more specific stuff. The community board has quite an interest in toilets this year, to be frank. So it's bit of a funny subject, it is actually something that's really important to our communities, making sure that people, when they're out and about, have the facilities that they need to feel safe and do their business. So one of the most important ones for our community is the Summerfield Park toilet renewal. We also have the Barrington Park toilet renewal, and we appreciate that there's a renewal in Victoria Park. One thing we would say is that the Victoria Park facilities are essentially a regional asset, whereas those two, the Summerfield and Barrington, are much more community assets that really benefit people in those local communities. We know that the toilets at Addington Park are being considered for lease to the Addington Farm Community Garden. We would encourage council to look at whether there's any support council can give with the fit out. We normally wouldn't fit out is normally the leasee's responsibility, but if there's renewal work being done in a way, we think it would make sense to bundle that up, work with the farm, who are a community garden, trying to deliver in a really important area. So we would really think that it'd be great if that could be overlapped. We support the establishment of new toilet facilities on Rapaki Track, and we are pleased that there was a memo on that recently, so we think there's some good forward movement there, and we're really pleased to see that, and we support that ongoing. There are then, I guess, two more major parks programs that we want to discuss. The first one is the Port Hills Management Plan. We're really pleased that this work is ongoing, and we really strongly support that. It echoes the Kia ora ki tai priority in our board plan, so it's awesome. We want to make sure that there's funding to deliver this plan, but also once the plan has been drafted and prepared, we think it's important that council thinks about how the implementation is going to be funded. So while it may not be something for this particular annual plan, we just want to put that on the radar of the council that will need to thinking. We've been raising the issue of the unmarked graves at Sydenham Cemetery, and there are other unmarked graves across the city, particularly in Bromley. We would support ongoing staff resourcing for this project. We think that there's a really important piece of work there for staff, primarily to bring together some of the other, some of the community, some of the government funding, and also philanthropic work there. But we do think that there's going to need to be a bit of staff to catalyse that. So we just want to say that would be awesome if that can continue. And recently, the Disraeli Reserve in Addington, the public artwork there was decommissioned. That is, it came to the end of its life. We would like to think about what could go there in the future, and we would like council to consider what that would look like and potentially put some funding, at least to start developing a bit of a plan there. So that's the section around parks. In terms of transport, the board has a strongly supports the council taking steps to help people make transport choices that work for them and their families, and making sure people feel safe using all modes of transport across our city. We would really like to emphasise that we think that there's quick wins that the council can make in some of these spaces where there's low cost and transitional and innovative steps that can be taken that don't necessarily break the bank but can deliver some wins. In terms of specific projects, we'd like to support the Selwyn Street, the work that's going on Selwyn Street, and potentially looking at the work done around the Innovating Streets project, whether there's anything from that can be picked up and carried on. Ongoing cycle access to the Colombo, as I discussed yesterday. We have a suite of other transport asks. I think we're really excited that the craft program is happening. We want to see that continue to roll out in area, and we want to see that happen reasonably at pace. We would also like to particularly look at with the potential, and we obviously don't know exactly where that's sitting, but around the PT Futures work, if what is happening there, we would really like to see, one, a bit of visibility on that, but also we would like to see ongoing work, particularly around Cashmere Road and Colombo Street for that PT priority work. So in terms of the board, the questions asked by council, we support the rating for renewals, and we support an increase to make sure that we are rating for renewals to keep borrowing and interest costs over the long term. Yes, it does mean a bit of pain in the short term, but in the long run, it is good stewardship. We don't support the reduction or cutting of services to pay for a rates decrease at this point, and we think that conversation, if it's going to happen, should be part of a long-term plan and be done quite thoroughly rather than just offhand. We support the draft climate resilience policy, including the Climate Resilience Fund. While the Air Force Museum is not in the board's area, we had strong feedback, particularly from the parents on the board, that the Air Force Museum was a great place for a rainy day. And so we do want to say that the Air Force Museum is an asset, and we would like to see the support that the council can give that carry on. We support the Central City shuttle scoping study. We think there's a lot of benefit to trying to figure out ways to help people move around the city, particularly with the change, and it gives people an alternative to driving in. Hopefully, so that's a good thing. And in terms of the disposal of council and properties, we've always seen that list. We recognise a lot of those are red zone Port Hills land. Realistically, we do support the council moving to dispose those, although we would note that in previous periods, the board hasn't expressed a view, and I think council has at times as well, that it would be ideal if they could be offered back to prior owners, although we recognise some of the constraints around that for the council. So that is the board's submission, and very happy to take questions.
Okay. You've got just under a minute. Gianni, please.
Yeah, thank you for the submission. What I'm having a little bit of difficulty working out in your submission is, what are you supporting that we currently have on budget, and what are the things that we don't have on budget that you support? So when you say support, I'm just trying to understand if that means that we've got it on budget, or is it that you want additional funding put on? And I just, the only other question I had was, I was unclear whether your board supports the nearly $7 million for the Scruttons Road crossing that is being put on budget and basically being funded through delaying the cycleways in the east.
Okay, so I think taking those two separately, I think what would be helpful for you would be if staff were to prepare a correspondence between the projects we've discussed and the projects in the plan, and I'm sure that staff can do that for you, Yanni. In terms of the Scruttons Road crossing, look, that's obviously been a frustrating process for everyone. The board does support the spend there. We would say that I think it is a project that has, we all know there's some headaches. However, I think realistically, if we don't spend that money, it won't happen. And in that case, that's not something that our communities would support. So that's the answer to that one.
Okay, thank you very much, Gianni. That's good. That's perfect. Thank you very much for coming in. At short notice, I might add.
It's always a pleasure to come see you all.
Good on you, mate. Marie and Helen, doing both together. Thank you very much. Good to see you again.